And now we move on to the details of these and more stories, beginning first with the 7th Summit of Heads of State at the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, ICGLR, which opened on Thursday in Congo's capital. President of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, after taking the presidency of the 7th Summit, pledged to handle the problems of member countries of the ICGLR as a way to advance towards development. He also called for the creation of mechanisms to facilitate the free movement of people and goods across the Great Lakes region. But of most importance for the conference, officials say, were the crisis in the DR Congo, the Central African Republic CR, Burundi and South Sudan, which are expected to come under the spotlight at the 12th Nation Summit in Brazzaville. African News' Michael Dibe and Uzezi Ugwe have been following the conference, and they filed in this report.
The 6 heads of state and representatives of the 6 other countries members of the International Conference on Great Lakes Region on Thursday met at Brazzaville on the occasion of the 7th Ordinary Summit. The leaders of the region undermined by armed conflict, including the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, Burundi and South Sudan, have called for the need to strengthen the action for the maintenance of peace in the region. The socio-political situation and security in the Democratic Republic of Congo remains a concern. In the face of the regional scope of disorders, socio-political armed clashes recurring of their many and varied implications, only concerted actions and cross-border can promote this in a sustainable manner, peace in this fraternal country.
La paix dans ce pays frère.
The conference also welcomed the role played by the United Nations in the DRC, the largest peacekeeping force with more than 20,000 men. Concerning the Central African Republic, member countries call for the end of differences on inter-religious divide in the nation. The summit of Brazzaville was also marked by the handover of power between the president of Angola, João Lourenço, and his Congolese counterpart, Denis Sassou Nguesso, who takes 4 years as the head of the Conference of the Great Lakes.
The time of peace, concord, and the renewed brotherhood has come. The optimistic words of Denis Sassou Nguesso in front of his counterparts, among them Joseph Kabila, the new Angolan President João, Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Faustin Archange Touadera of Central Africa, and Edgar Lungu of Zambia. In their final communique, the heads of state encouraged the United Nations mission in the DRC MONUSCO and the ICGLR to expedite the repatriation of Rwandan of the FDLR veterans currently housed in transit camps. FDLR is one of the many Hutu militias active in eastern DRC. President Kabila's second term ended in December 2016, and the constitution forbids him to represent himself while allowing him to remain in office until the installation of his chosen successor.
L'installation de son successeur élu qui pose beaucoup de problèmes dans la nation centrafricaine.
Angelo Izama is a Ugandan political analyst. He joins us now over the phone from Kampala. Good morning, Angelo. The ICGLR Conference on Conflicts in some African countries has kicked off in Brazzaville. What should we expect from this 7th meeting? Any concrete decisions that you think might come out of this conference?
If by concrete we mean that decisions to de-escalate the key conflict areas such as Burundi or Somalia, certainly I don't expect the Conference on the Great Lakes to fix that. What it does is provide an additional layer of dialogue which serves, in a sense, if you think about the process outside of the African Union, to be the kind of room where, because you're not being asked to resolve a conflict with particular timelines, people are much more honest, particularly the leaders, about what is really going on in this conflict. And the Great Lakes Conference is great for that sort of dialogue.
Angelo, how do you respond to those who might hold the view that depending on what comes out of this conference, the ongoing volatile peace efforts in South Sudan could be threatened?
I think the first thing is to re-examine, contemporary notions of sovereignty. The Great Lakes Conference was set up to create a larger map for multilateral cooperation. In other words, really, I participated in the initial discussion for this conference and the mechanism. The idea was to say, look, even if there are national borders, there are common interests and common peoples, and therefore, when you're dealing with a subject like conflicts, say in a place like Sudan or South Sudan or Burundi, the sovereignty of those countries becomes a secondary consideration. So once you move past the tricky issues of sovereignty, I think that in the case of South Sudan, repatriation of the refugees after they laying down of arms on the opposing side is one of the key things that I would like to see out of the conference this time. This is not an impossible task, of course. It will have to start by asking the leaders in South Sudan to very honestly take a different track to resolving their conflict that started in a couple of years ago.
Angelo, drawing lessons from the history of conflicts in Africa, what would you recommend to be done differently from what has been pursued over the years to ending conflicts on the African continent?
Well, the issue for me actually is this artificial operation of national sovereignty. If you lift the veil on so-called national sovereignty, what you really have are rogue elements, leaders who are motivated by power, warlords, and others who are incubating their ambitions within a state structure, even where they have completely lost legitimacy. Because we treat those countries as sovereign, we limit the options for intervention. Now, if you can go beyond the tricky question of sovereignty, I think that there is a lot of interest across the borders for quick resolution of certain conflicts. For example, in the case of South Sudan, Uganda is dealing with a major influx of refugees. There should be no excuse whatsoever for that kind of humanitarian suffering. But because we're dealing with it as a bilateral issue, and because South Sudan's sovereignty has been brought into the matter, it is holding down the full range of options that could be applied, including holding those leaders to account. So I would say that the Conference on Great Lakes should see that this homegrown multilateral organization should lift the veil on sovereignty wherever possible and go directly to the issues at the heart.
Ugandan political analyst Angelo is